Oh, hello. Hey, what's up? Welcome back to my channel. It's me. It's Emma. It's nice to meet you. It's nice to see you. I hope you're doing well. I read 17 things this month, so sit. We're gonna go through everything I read in June. Hopefully you can find some new book recommendations or steer clear of ones that maybe you shouldn't read. So we're gonna start with my only DNF of the month. So I picked up but did not finish The Maid by Nita Prose. I love books set in hotels. I love hotels. I love going to hotels. Like, seriously, for a vacation, I would consider just going to a random hotel in my hometown and staying in it. I think they're such interesting places. I think as a literary phenomenon, a literary being, I think hotels and books are some of the most interesting things. And so when I found out that The Maid was obviously about a girl, her name is Molly. She's known as Molly the Maid, and she works at a hotel. Her grandmother has recently passed away, and essentially her grandma was the person who kind of taught her how to be, how to exist in the world, how to interact with people. She basically can't understand social cues. She doesn't understand jokes. She's not really sure what they are. She can't really decipher what people are saying. And so one day when she comes across the body that is in one of the rooms that she is cleaning, she freaks out, obviously, but there's so much more than that. And then eventually she's interviewed by the police, and this is essentially supposed to be like a cozy murder mystery. The reason that I DNF'd this was because I was finding the writing so inconsistent, specifically with Molly, and I've seen other people talk about this too when I went on Goodreads, because essentially Molly, like I was saying, is always super blunt, super honest. She relies on her grandma to provide her, like, should I smile in this situation? What do I say in this situation? If someone says this, do they really mean this? If someone asked her a question as a joke, she would answer it immediately as if it was not rhetorical, as if it was not a comedic question. But then randomly other times, like for example when she's being interviewed by the police, all of a sudden those character traits and that personality and who she is seems to vanish, and all of a sudden she knows when to lie. She knows how to interpret the police's digging questions, which are definitely trying to pressure her into saying more than she's letting on. And it's in those moments that she kind of just relinquishes everything the reader has been kind of built up to believe that she is, and that was just really frustrating. On top of that, I was really bored, so I just decided to put it down. I've heard really mixed things about this in general, and I'm just really sad because I love hotels. I honestly still want to be a hotel maid. I really identified with Molly because she also has the dream of being a hotel maid. Like, she loves her job so much. It's like her dream job. Since before I got my first job, which unfortunately was not at a hotel, it was at an Italian restaurant, I always wanted to be a hotel maid, which so many people have been like, Emma, no you don't. I just think it's a really cool job. I honestly do. And I feel like sometime in my future, like, I still want to work at a hotel. That was just super satisfying, but overall, not a good one. The month of June for me was the month of rereads, the month of bane of my existence schoolwork, but also the month of sci-fi and completing / continuing series. This one was a reread for me, but it is going to like start my goal of finishing a series basically, and that is The Hobbit by Bilbo. It's not by Bilbo Baggins. God damn it. It's The Hobbit by Tolkien. But I mean, I guess it's technically kind of by Bilbo, you know, because Bilbo is narrating his time. I have read this. I read The Hobbit in elementary school and I have not picked it up since then, but I decided to give it a go this time on audiobook, which was really fun. I love this. 4 stars, not quite a 5, because what I will say is that this book is completely charming, so easy to love, so fun, very clever, very heartwarming. I would honestly, if I was 40 and I had no one else to marry, I would put a ring on Mr. Bilbo Baggins' finger. He would give me a good life, and I know he would. It's a really weird thing to say. One of my only issues with The Hobbit is that the pacing of this book is just out of this world. And I know it's because it's Tolkien, it was written a long time ago, whatever you want to call it, but the pacing is wow. We are running a marathon at every single moment. There's no let up, there's no break. So much of that fantasy slowness that I crave, that I've gotten in a lot of other fantasy series that I've read, is not present in The Hobbit, unfortunately. There are some tiny13 moments, but I honestly just had to kind of try and let go of trying to learn and remember and have intimate relationships with all of the 14 dwarves that we're going on the adventure with, because essentially, if you don't know what this is about, Bilbo is a hobbit. I don't know why I'm explaining to you the plot of The Hobbit. You better know what this is. There just wasn't really that much time to connect to anyone except for Bilbo, since we are in his head pretty much all the time. But the pacing, the plot, man, it's just one thing happens, another thing happens. It's like action sequence after action sequence after action sequence. It's just like a series of things happening. One chapter will end and the next chapter will pick up something immediately different is happening that requires a lot of your attention. And so The Hobbit really feels like you don't have that much time to just breathe, which I know is not something that carries across the rest of Tolkien's works, because I have read The Fellowship of the Ring as well. I know it's supposed to be for a younger audience as well, so that's probably why, but highly recommend. I think you gotta read The Hobbit, and I cannot wait to finish The Lord of the Rings and read probably all the rest of Tolkien's work. But I don't know when I'll be picking up The Fellowship of the Ring. I kind of want to pick it up either like late summer, early fall. I feel like that's when I want to reread it. So yeah, but that is The Hobbit. What else the heck did I read? Oh, I don't know. Like I said, June was also the month of finishing series, because I finally completed the Themis Files by Sylvain Neuvel. I finally picked up Only Human, which is the third and final book in this sci-fi trilogy. I picked this up when we went into our first lockdown here in Ontario in, I don't even know when that was. And it was really fun because this is a series all set in interview format. We follow a PhD, what does she have, like a doctorate of, it's either physics or like astrophysics. Her name is Rose, and when she was younger, she fell into this giant hole that had this huge metal hand. It essentially looked like, the hand of the Iron Giant, or some like robot hand that was just incredibly big. And so she grows up, she gets her PhD, and she devotes her life to studying this random thing that they found in the ground in the United States. But then things all change when they find more of these robot parts, and you kind of start to figure out what's going on with them, why are they here, and essentially the Themis Files is about aliens. It's a science fiction about aliens. It was so fun. The first two books, loved it. I like dug through the first one. I like binge listened to the first one. The audiobooks, I think, with these are the way to go because they are all interviews. It's incredibly interesting to listen to. It feels so compelling because it's a full cast audiobook production. You have people really giving it their all. And I thought the first two books were plotted so well. They set themselves up so well. They gave you so many clues and questions, and you could really see things that would progress throughout the novel, right? That like you could trace all the way back to little nuggets. And then the third book came along and ruined it all. It wrecked it. It completely destroyed it. This was the worst book. This was the worst conclusion to the series for me. I thought it was so poorly done. It felt so rushed. Things happened so quickly. I'm not going to spoil anything, but the third book takes place. We have a completely different location. We have some new characters, and so many huge things are going down. The series deals a lot with the difference between humans and like what we consider extraterrestrial, how we view others, the way that we treat people as extraterrestrials who are still humans. That word is so hard for me to say. One of the reasons I loved listening to Sleeping Giants, which is the first one, so much in lockdown, is because it was about the world falling apart at a time when the world was falling apart. I mean, it's still falling apart. It all falls apart. It was just, it just wrecked it. It ruined some of my favorite characters for me. It completely changed so many things. It rushed so many things. And overall, I think it was just a really poor conclusion to the story. One of the only reasons I made it all the way through to the end is because I just really love one of the characters. His name is Vincent, and he is just narrated by the most wonderful Québécois voice actor imaginable. And it just, listening to these books is very nostalgic for me, just purely his voice actor, because his character is from Montreal, and growing up I went to a French immersion, elementary school and high school. I took some in university, and it's just like, it literally feels like home. That's something I haven't really realized until picking up these audiobooks and getting to hear that French Canadian accent again, or hearing it out in the wild, which is more rare now. But it just hits a special place in my heart, and makes me feel so at home. Would I recommend the series? I'd recommend the series, but stop after book 2 and just write yourself a better ending. Oh shit, we gotta speed this up. Sonic. In June, I picked up A Discourse on the Method by Descartes, our good friend Descartes. Did I like this? No. This was really, I don't even want to say interesting to read. I don't actually think this was that interesting. I can imagine at the time it was incredibly compelling. This was also really great because these Oxford editions, man, I love them. Thank you to whoever puts these together. You always do a great job. Whoever you are out there who needs to hear that. The introduction is longer than the actual text that Descartes wrote, and so it just comes with so much information that does make you appreciate and does give you a better handle on his actual philosophical treatise. It's basically his pursuit for reason, his pursuit of reason, his love of reason, and like how he reasons in his mind and how he deals with reality and also God. In here he proves, no, he doesn't. He tries to prove God's existence. He talks a lot of smack about animals. Can we just take a second? I didn't get to actually vlog any of this, and so I just want to read you how ridiculous this sounds. I just want to smack him across the face. I just think this was really funny as well, because you get to a certain page and all of a sudden we're talking about if animals have sentience. What do animals think? The intelligence of animals. His basic conclusion is that animals are just soulless machines. So you can torture them all you want because it doesn't matter, because they're just machines. You're reading and all of a sudden he just yells at you and he says, "I should like those who are unversed in anatomy to take the trouble, before reading this, of having the heart of a large animal with lungs dissected before their eyes." God, Descartes, I can't finish this book. Let me just... Hello? Hi. Yeah, are you still doing that dissection later? Okay. How big's the animal? Is it a big machine? Okay, yeah. Can you make sure the lungs are still there and we take it apart and you tell me everything, because otherwise I can't read the rest of this. Okay, cool. I'll see you at 3. Bye. Love ya. Neither must one imagine, as did certain ancient thinkers, that animals speak, although we do not understand their language. That is precisely it, and he just misses the mark. Anyway, I'm glad I read this. I wanted to get more philosophy under my belt. I do think at times it was honestly pretty accessible. His argument for God was something I just had to look up in more simple terms, because this man, as much as he says that he hates long books, and of course this text is really short, his sentences are just so confuddled that it's just be concise, be clear. If you guys have watched my most recent vlog, I did pick up Hear the Wind Sing by Haruki Murakami, as well as Pinball 1973. Calcifer. These are Murakami's first and second novels, which was so fun. I went pretty in depth into a lot of my thoughts in that vlog if you want to check it out. I did end up liking Pinball a lot more, but these two are connected, and I believe there are 4 in total Murakami works that follow the unnamed narrator of these 2 novels, as well as his friend, who is just this guy known as the Rat. These 2 novels chronicle their time on summer break when they come back from college, and they're just kind of meandering around. Is it their hometown? Really all they do is drink, listen to music, sleep with people, insult women, and otherwise have existential crises everywhere they can. And then Pinball 1973 is after they graduated, and our narrator is starting to work at a translation company, which was really cool, and he becomes obsessed with this one pinball machine from his past that he can't find because it's been taken away from the arcade or the bar where he was playing it. And so we follow him on his quest to find the pinball machine. Already very Murakami. I think these were really impressive. They're definitely were not anything super special, but the feelings that they evoke, I think that's one of the most impressive things in Murakami. That's something I was talking a lot about in this vlog. The feelings that these 2 brought out, even though you're really reading repetitive, mundane, everyday things, is so impressive. It makes the domestic so interesting, so interesting. It makes the everydayness incredibly magical, and it's so cool that that was already something he kind of had in here. And it almost feels like he's doing it by accident. He's not really doing it on purpose. A lot of this first book is also a meditation on writing novels. How do you go about writing? And at times it's extremely sloppy, but because he's kind of set himself up as taking on the guise of a narrator in here who is writing his first novel or writing something, it's kind of excusable in that way, which is something cool to explore as well. But yeah, overall I gave both of these 3.5 stars, and this just made me want to read all the Murakami in my life, so I'm really happy I picked these up. I had to read a few things for school, so I read a couple Ralph, I can never say this poor man's name. I had to read a couple of Ralph Waldo Emerson's works. So we have Nature and Self-Reliance, and then just talking about kind of something similar along that vein, we have Resistance to Civil Government by Henry David Thoreau, which I also had to read for uni. Nature and Self-Reliance are quite similar. They're basically about self-invention. We are entering the transcendentalism period, which is basically transcend society. Find yourself, be yourself, go into nature, look at nature, find God, find yourself finding God. Be who you want to be is essentially what we're talking about. And resistance to civil government, that was the best out of this trio. It's also known as civil disobedience. So it's basically like if the government in question is not functioning how government should, because the government is in place to serve their people, you have every right to protest or to be disobedient in a civil context. Wasn't really obsessed with Ralph Waldo Emerson, although I did like Emerson's writing style better than Thoreau's, but I liked Thoreau's ideas and exploration and his take on how you should be in a society and what are your responsibilities much better than Emerson, because Emerson is kind of like the idealist, whereas Thoreau will actually go out and do things. Like he was jailed for a little bit for not paying his taxes because that was a non-violent way for him to protest against the government, was just not to pay his taxes. Whereas Emerson was just like, yeah, fight for rights, but he's just like writing about it. Whereas Thoreau is actually out here doing something. We also read Song of Myself by Walt Whitman. This was a reread for me, I believe. Do I like Walt Whitman? Man, it's one of those things, isn't it? I think I do. But sometimes he's just really annoying. Some of his sentences hit me so hard, and a lot of his sentiments I'm just in love with. But as well, sometimes he's just so annoying, so full of himself, so it's just too nebulous. It's too nebulous for me. It's too insubstantial. Some of the things that he talks about and writes about that I get to the point where I'm like, what are you actually saying? And what does this mean for people, for your readers, for me, in an actual real life context kind of thing, which we did talk about in class and stuff. So it's not like I'm not clueless, it's just not 100% my style. Let's talk about some fun things. So I read 2 manga this month, 2 manga volumes. Okay, so first up I read Restaurant to Another World, Volume 1. So cute. This is by Junpei Onizuka, Takaki Kugatsu, and Katsumi Yanami. We got 3 people working on this. Okay, you guys, 3 people, a group project working on this together. This one I heard about on Goodreads, and then my boyfriend very kindly gave this to me. I thought this was going to be such a cute, wholesome, kind of similar food manga because I was really liking Kitchen Princess and I kind of wanted something more like that, but this was entirely ridiculous. It was not heartwarming to me, and I was just like, I am uncomfortable. I don't want to be here. I think I still give this 3 stars. Maybe demote it. Let's demote it to 2 stars because this is about a restaurant that every Saturday, I think, opens its doors to a fantasy world. That's like a kind of a parallel world to Earth. So it is a normal restaurant during the entire week, but then this one day we have creatures like fairies, ogres, demons, everything like that coming through and eating at this restaurant. So we follow this young girl who is a demon in like the other world, the world on the outside of the door. Demons are really looked down on, and so she can't find work anywhere, but eventually she comes to work for the chef at the restaurant as a waitress. I thought this was good. That sounds wholesome. It sounds wholesome. Let me tell you, this book was just nudity. It's like those big tall people in the baggy clothes and the top hats, and you open it up and it's just whoops, boobs. But I also read volume 2 of Hunter x Hunter. Really, really like this. Really like this. Hisoka. I will talk to my therapist about this one. This is definitely one that I would recommend. Like I said, I ended up liking volume 1 a lot more, but I'm so excited. And I did find volume 3 because there has been like a huge, I don't know if there's like a shortage. I think there's a shortage of manga publishing in general right now and into English, but I did manage to find and pick up volume 3. Very happy about it because they all end on, of course, like cliffhangers. Hisoka and Kahlua are my favorite characters. And I also really like Leario. They're just all good. They're all good. They're all interesting. I can tell this is going to get really dark and I'm here for it. So keeping up with the sci-fi, I also read Aurora Burning by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. This is the 2nd book in the Aurora Cycle trilogy. I decided to continue on with the series because the first one was just okay. This is about Squad 312, who have recently all graduated from Aurora Academy, Aurora Legion. So they are tasked with kind of being like the UN. It's kind of like space UN, the UN in space. They go to different planets, they talk to people, they're kind of ambassadors, and they sort out trouble. They just help people in general with anything that they might need help with. Their squad, 312, is made up of misfits who all hate each other. We have Tyler Jones, who is like command leader of the squadron, but on the day that they're supposed to graduate and pick their squad, he finds this girl floating out in space in this abandoned spaceship, like she's in crypto. No. Crypto. I said it, and now the crypto spam bots are gonna be in the comments section. I made $300 million in 12 seconds. She's in crypto. No, what is it? Kryptonite. No, she's frozen. Cryogenics? She's freaking frozen. She's a popsicle. You know what I'm trying to say. She's not rolling around in Dogecoin. I don't know what I'm thinking. He rescues her, and that's why he's late, and so he's left with a band of misfits. Some of them are different species. We have different people, different personalities, and you follow them, covering this plot to unravel and destroy the whole entire galaxy that kind of smells like communism in a very suspicious way. The first book was just okay, like it was still entertaining, and that's kind of what made me want to tackle Aurora Burning, but gee whiz, this was so boring. And how is that possible? It's like a space opera. This honestly felt like the writers were so done. It felt like the authors were just cruising, breezing through their own book, writing it as quickly as possible, using recycled phrases over and over again. If I have to read one more time that he lifted his perfectly sculpted eyebrow, no. Like, stop. How does an editor let you get away with that? If I was your editor, I wouldn't let you down like that. Hire me. It honestly just really felt like this book was missing something, like missing the it factor. It just felt like the authors were bored of their own book. It didn't feel like they were excited to write it. And I feel like that feeling was quite contagious and catchable to the reader for me. So that's just kind of the vibe I bought. Let me buy that vibe. Definitely let me know if it does get better in the last book, but yeah. Just really weird. It felt like there was really some key part of the story, whether that was in the writing, the plot, the characters, that just wasn't there. And then you're going to be very proud of me. I finally finished The Body Keeps the Score. Was this really well done? Yes, I will say this, especially the first half of this book was really what I was interested in, because it delves into like what actually is trauma, like what's literally going on inside your brain, what is happening. And that was so fascinating. I'm gonna be honest with you, I picked up this book because, as a lot of you know, but some of you guys are new here, I suffered a really severe concussion in 2019 that still has not completely relinquished its grasp on my brain. There's still a lot of things I struggle with, some PTSD and a lot of anxiety and trauma from, I mean, it was a traumatic brain injury, so the traumatic event in my life, and this sounded really, really promising and really interesting to me, because I went through, I cannot even tell you how many doctor's appointments, how many examinations, and I mean, I met some lovely people, lovely doctors that I'm so grateful for, but a lot of the time I really feel like I wasn't being told very much. And I know part of the reason is that, I mean, one of them straight up told me that we have no idea what a concussion is, but like we do know some things, and I wanted some information. I wanted to know a lot. I wanted to be given like really in-depth information, and when I wasn't given that, I kind of turned to trying to find it for myself, and this honestly delivered on everything I wanted in terms of what happens to your brain when it gets stuck in the cycle of trauma, how especially that relates to your body, what's going on in your brain when you have a panic attack, and more importantly, how to not only accept that, but of course deal with it and treat it and make a full recovery. This covered trauma is universal, so it covered so many different types of trauma. It looked at so many case studies, which was really interesting. Very hard to read, extremely hard to read, especially the first half, because it does deal with like so many people's experiences. It deals with things that hit home in ways that like you don't even know, right? And it's very scary to learn things about yourself when you don't know what they're going to be, because you'll turn a page, you'll read a sentence, and you'll be like, that's it, that applies to my life, that's exactly what I've been experiencing. And now you have to sit with the knowledge that something that you know about yourself now that maybe you didn't want to know, because so much of trauma is hiding from trauma. The second half of this book, which does focus more on ways to heal and therapy, was less helpful to me, because like I said, I've gone to so many appointments, and I will say the book does get a little bit repetitive. This was so incredibly helpful. I highlighted so much, I took notes. There's so many not pictures. What are they called? There's so many graphs and just really, really good information. So yeah, I would recommend this probably to everyone, even if you don't have, well, I mean, how? If you are alive in this world without trauma, wow. Gold stars, amazing. I think it's a wonderful resource to sympathize with other people, to understand people better, to help them and to have more meaningful relationships, because of course this does talk about stuff like abuse, difficult family relationships, difficult love relationships, everything like that. I'm so glad that I did read it, and as someone who has obviously had a brain injury, suffered a lot of trauma from that, is still going through things, I can tell you just from personal experience that this book actually helped me, which is really cool, and I'm really thankful for that. So then we have a book that I did not like, and I'm so sad about it. I'm not going to talk about it too much because we're going to be doing our Dickens versus Tolstoy live show for this book. I'm not sure if it's going to be this weekend. I really need to call Carolyn. Maybe I'll call her right now. No, don't do it. And that is The Old Curiosity Shop by Charles Dickens. The betrayal, it stings. I'm not sure who, we both betrayed each other. Charles. This is my least favorite Dickens book now, which is so surprising because this book was like the most hyped so far out of our reading list that we've done for the book club. But geez, like I wanted to throw this book out of the window every single time that I picked it up. This famously follows Nell, who is like the stereotypical perfect angel girl child who will just sacrifice herself again and again to care for her grandpa, who I just could not care less about, who has a really, really bad gambling addiction and is kind of dying. Is he kind of dying? You should have invested in crypto. You follow her and her grandfather escaping London. Are we even in London? I think so. And they're trying to find a safe haven because they are being mistakenly chased by a whole bunch of people who want the grandfather's money, because there's this rumor or idea that is circulating that Nell's grandfather is hoarding huge amounts of cash, and that he's going to give them to Nell when she comes of age. And so you just follow them bopping around from place to place to place, trying to find somewhere to just live in goddamn peace and quiet, and they can't. But this book also follows a bunch of other Dickensian characters, and it was just, in my opinion, not funny, not interesting, not clever. It lacked Dickens' really fantastical, magical descriptions for me. It lacked his humor. It lacked his insight. Oh, God. So, I'm not going to say too much more about this. I gave it 2 stars. Don't recommend. Then I read one of the most devastating books I've ever read, and that was The Death of Vivek Oji by Kweki Emezi. This is one I would recommend. This took me a long time to get into this book. I picked this up because it's been all over BookTube. So many people have been talking about it, and Kweki Emezi is an author I really want to get into. This was a good decision. We are in Nigeria, and the first page of the book, he is found dead on his family's doorstep. He's naked, and he's been apparently brutally murdered. This book is brutal, is the best word for it. It's just brutal. So this book is split between the present timeline where Vivek is dead, and we're following his mother, who is on an obsessive quest to find out who killed him. Like, why is my son on my doorstep dead? And then you also follow flashbacks, or no, just a past timeline, I guess, where Vivek is very much alive. He has a really important relationship with his cousin, Osita, and you follow his life before the present timeline happens. Vivek is also someone who suffers from, I don't know really what to call them. I guess in the summary they're called blackouts, but if you read this book you'll kind of see what happens for yourself, because he has periods where he just isn't really in reality anymore, and so his cousin and kind of his friends that he's met have to take care of him, cover up for him in these situations. And it's kind of this really scary thing that keeps happening to him, even throughout his, is it his childhood, I guess? I'm not gonna say anything else about this book. The thing that stopped me from giving it any more than 4 stars, and like, it was kind of just a 4-star for me, is that I wanted a lot more time with our characters, because this is a relatively short book, and there are a lot of people in here who have incredibly deep, complicated, meaningful relationships. I wanted more of that. I feel like for some of the people, we really only saw them for a few split seconds, because this does follow the lives of different people in Nigeria. This book just was devastating. It was devastation. We have 2 more books that I read for my American Lit course. I'm going to talk about them pretty briefly. I got to read Daisy Miller by Henry James, which is a novella that James wrote to talk about 2 different classes of American people clashing, because this book is set abroad in Switzerland and Italy. We follow Daisy, who is kind of part of the New Money Society, and so she is very brash, outspoken. When I'm saying brash and outspoken and everything I'm about to say, please keep in mind that it's like 1880, 1870 or something. And she's really just being a normal human being. She's really just being a normal human girl, and she is punished relentlessly for it. So she doesn't really abide by the social customs or norms or traditions of the old money, who are of course super uptight. They don't want to talk about anything upsetting. Politics, marriage, disease, death, sickness, all of that is no-no. All of that is taboo. Like, you don't go anywhere with men who you don't know, or if you don't have a chaperone, you're not forward, you don't flirt. If you're a woman, you don't speak very much. And so Daisy speaks a lot, and it's about the relationship between her, Daisy Miller, and this man that she meets in Switzerland, and his name is Winterbourne. The symbolism, it's really in your face. You know, we have Winterbourne, who's very cold, uptight, part of the older class, and then we have Daisy, who is fresh and young, and not afraid to speak her mind and flirt with people, and she is criticized and punished relentlessly for this, probably most of all by Winterbourne, who can't help but be drawn toward her and have a big fat crush on her, even though he won't admit it to himself and treats her like trash. I was really not liking this until the end. That's the thing, if I like read a book and I'm like, oh my god, but then it ends tragically, if it's like a tragic story, Kelsifer, I'm out here. If it ends tragically, I'm like, okay, wait, I like this. Does that make sense? Because Daisy Miller is a tragedy. I mean, it says it on the back. It doesn't end happily. Like, it is kind of boring because it's a very like bare bones, like extremely obvious examination of that clash of values. But it also kind of leaves it up to, I don't even want to say it leaves it up to the reader, because anyone who judges Daisy that harshly, I think, is just, they just need to stop talking. Hi. Oh, my little muffin. Did you wake up? Did you just wake up? You wanna say hi? I haven't seen you for 45 minutes. It's been agony. Definitely extremely different from Turn of the Screw. Turn of the Screw is one of my favorite books, and so this for me was just Henry James 180. Like, he can really do anything, I think, which is cool, but as a story, like, I would definitely not recommend this unless you have to analyze it. It's like one of those, do you know what I mean? It's one of those books that I don't think anyone wants to read unless they have to write about it, because it's really just like old values, new values, clash, tragedy, women. I read The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn by Mark Twain. I've never wanted to read this. This is a book that I like pre-knew. I knew that I was gonna hate it, and I hated it. I don't really want to talk about it too much. If you like it, why do you like it? This was my favorite book of the month. I love this so much. I've already talked about this in a few videos, but it's Icefields by Thomas Warton. 5 stars, one of the best books I've read all year. Read it, just read it. This is fantastic. I bought this when I was on my trip in Banff. It's set around Banff and Jasper and just Alberta in general, and you follow different people who become obsessed with the glacier. Mostly you follow Dr. Byrne, who falls into a crevice on an expedition to the glacier, and he sees something trapped in the ice that he can't explain, and so he obsessively goes back as the glacier retreats over the years to try and be there the moment that it's gonna come out of the ice, when the ice melts. And now I've lost my voice because I've talked so much about damn books. That is everything I read in June. As you can see, I'm missing a bookshelf behind me. It is, it's gone because I will be moving in a couple of weeks now to Toronto. If you haven't seen my, my last vlog, and I think my next video will probably be my book unhaul, which is quite the long process. So yeah, just want to say thank you so much for watching. Thank you for all the support, all your love, all your kindness. And yeah, I will see you in my next video. Ciao.
Take a train ride just to see you. Ride for hours just to please you.